have a story that my daddy told. He worked at the ranch house at that time, and Elvis came through on his way to Tupelo and wanted to know could he put up one of those posters in the window of the ranch house, advertising them going to be in Tupelo at a certain time. And Daddy let him. Daddy said he was a real nice man. Of course, Daddy had no idea who he was. I mean, he was just getting started. Well, on the way back, they didn't have enough money to get back to Memphis. So they stopped again at the ranch house. And they wanted $5 to get back to Memphis on. And Daddy was going to give it to him, but Elvis would not accept $5 without giving him something in return. So Daddy said he gave him an old threadbare tire. Said it wasn't worth anything, but Elvis sold that tire to my daddy for the $5 to get back to Memphis on. My daddy didn't keep that tire. He had no idea what its worth would have been.
Original Elvis Presley tire.
I know, it might not have been from his car, but it was.
My great-grandmother discovered that she was expecting a new baby, so they waited to go in the spring. And you know how they did, they divided the caravans up into smaller groups. And they were attacked by a warring band of Indians as they crossed Alabama. Mm-hmm. And she was partially scalped, and the majority of the people were killed. And the tribe of Indians from South Mississippi, where Oxford is today, Ole Miss, they passed by and picked them up and took them back to their camping grounds. And they put Miss Borroum's scalp back on using yellow root and prickly M. Yellow root, you know it today, is fibromycin, tetracycline. It wasn't until around 1950 that we got to using the tetracyclines for infection.
The size of your family sort of dictated how well you could do or whether you got on to, say, one of the better farms where there was ample equipment. Larger the family, the more desirable you would be as a family to sharecrop. And of course, I can recall there were some blacks here during that time that did own their own properties. We were just not quite that fortunate, and we moved. I learned to farm at a very young age. Probably before 10 years old, we were farming. I plowed a pair of mules as well as my dad. I thought it was the most horrible life in the world. And here today I find myself back and I garden, and of course I don't have a pair of mules. I've thought about it. I have to feed those, so I chose a tractor.
His name James Henry, but he was called to be called Jaybird. And the reason why, Jaybird Dillingham, his grandpa, when they came into Alcorn County, it was Old Tishomingo County then, Corinth was not even a city. It had not been made a city. It didn't have a courthouse. It had buildings that they could have court in and so on here, like Justice of Peace and so on. But anyway, he got too much liquor, and he came to town and had an old bull out there, and that old bull was named Jaybird. So they dared him to ride up the courthouse steps on old bull, and he did. Well, Mama always told us that story, that because the bull was named Jaybird, that's what Grandpa was called. But we found out later that he rode up those steps naked as a jaybird, and that's why it got called Jaybird.
As folks do.
As folks do. Yeah, right here, this very area, that's where the courthouse was. And he rode it up there naked as a jaybird. And so my brother was Jaybird as long as he lived, and he just loved that story. He'd tell it to everybody.
Well, I think it's a town full of characters, they walking in off the street. And the same, you got to meet, or I got to meet all of these characters either through tourism, through the museum. And I think it's just a matter of pride in place, because you do have people that, say, why do we live here? And they move away. But I think the ones who stay, they just, I don't know what it is, but there's just this, and I'm not so sure that it's pride, but it's almost like a storytelling thing, and it's something that links us all together, because if you have somebody talk about Roscoe Turner, people have heard Roscoe Turner stories handed down, the Borroums. You have those stories handed down. You have stories of Civil War soldiers and families here. So there's just this wonderful storytelling culture.
Now I have to ask, you indicated that Buford did your family a favor.
Oh yeah, Buford did have my family a favor. He killed my Uncle Russ. Russ Hamilton killed my aunt.
I see.
Russ married my aunt, and then later on killing her, and he went to prison, and he threatened all of her sisters. Had a bunch of sisters that testified in the court. Matter of fact, right upstairs from where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was in McNair County. And they testified that he was the last person to be seen with her. So all the time Russ would get out of prison, he would always threaten them and come through the neighborhood. So they were all fearful of him. So one Christmas, him and Buford got disagreed, and Buford put him to sleep. Gave him a big Christmas present.
And the rest of the family, too.
So Buford was, like I said, he was legendary. A lot of times a person named Bill Morris can take a typewriter and make a legend out of dang near nothing.
He bought supplies from Abe Rubel, like dry goods, the cloth and things like that, and the overalls from Abe Rubel, which was a big store here in town at that time. Mm-hmm. And they were Jews, mm-hmm. and a very prominent family. Mm-hmm. And Big Papa would buy supplies from them, and he got to know them real well. So Big Papa goes over at Henry Cemetery and buys him a plot over there for a pretty good sized plot. I think they're already, about 6 people buried there. So it was a big plot at Henry Cemetery, and it was close to the Rubels. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be buried close to the Rubels because he knew them. And on his tombstone it has J.A. Jones, RFD, which means Route 3, Pocahontas, Tennessee, on it. So he was just really a fascinating person, and we all loved him, but we all just, sometimes we wonder about him and his money. He loved his money more than anything.
So he had a return address on his tombstone?
He had a return address on his tombstone.
At that point, as Justice of the Peace, not only did he marry people, but he tried cases. And people would come if their husband had too much to drink and gave them a problem. The wives would come and have them put in jail under a peace bond on Saturday night, and then by Sunday they're coming to get them out and so forth. This was a period when Corinth was known as Little Chicago because of the state line. And Louise Hathcock, who was famous at the state line, would, if Jack was unruly and beat her up or something, she would come and put him under a peace bond with my father, and came to our house to do that. And then Sunday or Monday she would come and get him out.
The first time I saw Elvis, I only saw him twice. Once he was in a car driving by. I went to school at Baptist in Memphis, Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, and that was his hospital of choice. So we'd see him in the car, Oh my goodness, I have a friend, still in touch. She was our next door neighbor in the dorm at nursing school. She was from Missouri, and she's an Elvis fan. Oh my goodness, more than me maybe, I don't know. Every time she would see him drive by, she would scream her head off. And I told her one day, I said, Kathy, you got to stop doing that. But it's Elvis. I said, he lives here. This is his town. Everybody sees Elvis. Quit screaming. But he and his wife had Lisa at Baptist, and We were all lined up like little penguins, you know. We got to stand in a little semicircle by the nurse's desk when he and his entourage came to pick up Lisa and his wife and Priscilla. He stayed with her the whole time. And pictures of them are in our annual with some of our student nurses who took care of her. They actually were very delightful. The whole end of the hall was barricaded off, of course, because it was Elvis. So they were limited on the number of maternity cases that were on that floor that particular week. But as they came around the nurse's desk, I could still see he had on that gorgeous royal blue outfit, pants and jacket, light blue turtleneck, no makeup. He was so beautiful.
That's what parents did back then, because they had to.
Sure.
Yeah. They trained you how to do things. They taught you how to get along in life. They taught you what the systems were and how things were in the streets and that. So you learn how to avoid certain issues because you were taught that.
Including racial issues?
Yes. Say, for instance, if I was going down the street and I was on the same side that you had a group of white guys down on the corner, I cross over the street to the other side because you know what they're going to do. Or they're going to call you the N-word. So why walk down in the middle of them when you can go over? Not that you're afraid, but that's the wise thing to do. You can't lose. You can't win if you go down there and get in the middle of them. They're going to push you. They're going to do something to you. So if you cross over the street and you can go on. See, and this is just forethought. You were taught this because you can't win the system. If something happened, police come, it's going to take you to jail.
What was your birthday?
1913.
And you are 100 years old now?
Uh-huh.
Wow. And
But we were so young back then we couldn't do much. But we'd work in the cotton patch. You know, then you had to hoe it out. And when you gathered the cotton, you had these big old sacks on, and you'd gather the cotton.
wow.
And we did things like that. But my daddy never was hard on us. He never was. He'd tell us what we could do, but if we couldn't do it, he never did make us. That's the way he was. And he was a good father, but he couldn't spank us, he couldn't whip us. He'd tell us what we could do and what we couldn't do, but he couldn't mistreat us in any way.
Excellent.
You know, and it was. Now my mother could, but my daddy never could mistreat us in any way. We had a good life growing up.
This is a hospitality state, and we've always said, come on down to Mississippi and we'll treat you so many ways. You got to like one or two of them.